Milton Yatra ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashoda Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashoda Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Yamuna Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Astotar Sati Shishimar is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Anant Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Iskcon Milton Yatra ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namao Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Gurule. Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Vaskatyari Shatari. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming today. So as we mentioned earlier, today we're celebrating the Transcendental Appearance Day of Sri Nityananda Ram. So Lord Nityananda appeared, his appearance day was on Thursday, so on Trayodasi. But since it was a weekday, we thought it would be nice to celebrate it today, where more devotees can benefit from hearing about Sri Nityananda Ram. So Nityananda Prabhu, is actually a manifestation of the very first manifestation. Lord Krishna's first expansion is Lord Balaram. And so Balaram is known as Adi Guru. So in order to reach Lord Krishna, one needs to go through Lord Balaram or his representative. So Nityananda Prabhu is none other than Lord Balaram. Nityananda Prabhu is none other than Lakshman. So when Lord Krishna appeared 5,000 years ago, his very first expansion, Lord Balaram also accompanied him for his Leela. And Lord Balaram appeared as his older brother. When Lord Ramachandra appeared about 2 million years ago, Lord Balaram took the form of Lakshman. And that time he appeared as the Lord's younger brother. So Krishna likes to mix it up a little bit. Sometimes he comes alone, sometimes he comes with his immediate expansion, and sometimes he comes as the older brother, or sometimes he comes as the younger brother. But nevertheless, he's there. So Lord Balaram is equally the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna are non-different. So Lord Ram and Lord Lakshman are non-different. So the Yuga avatar for Kali Yuga was Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who appeared a little over 500 years ago. And he appeared specifically for the purpose of spreading the Yuga Dharma. And the Yuga Dharma for Kali Yuga is Hari Kirtan, chanting the name of Lord Hari. So the Lord's made it, he's so kind that he made it very, very easy. That simply by chanting his name, one can achieve him. Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Antakale chamamevam smaran mukvakalevadam. So he said, if one remembers me only at the time of leaving this body, he will come to my transcendental abode. So in Kali Yuga, in Sati Yuga, people sit and meditate for thousands of years in order to achieve the Supreme. And in the following Yuga, they do yagyas so anyone who have read or heard the Leela of Lord Ram, his yagya that he was performing when he became emperor of the world, went on for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. There was no stop. Right now we sit for a few minutes and our legs start hurting. We have to stand up. But Lord Ram did this yagya for many weeks and days and months. And then in the following yuga, it was elaborate deity worship, worshiping the Lord in his deity form. So he accepted this Archa Vigraha form, right? Archa means worship and Vigraha means form. So he kindly accepts this form and he comes here. So this is one of the different avatars of the Lord, this worshipable form. So Mahaprabhu came a little over 500 years ago in the year 1586. But prior to him coming, Lord Balaram took the form of Nityananda, and he appeared 12 years before Mahaprabhu, which is, I think, was 1574, in a small village in what's today known as West Bengal, called Ekachakra. So he appeared in a pious Brahmin family. His father's name was Hadai Pandit, and his mother's name was Padmavati. So Nityananda Prabhu was known in his younger days as Nitai. Similarly, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was known in his younger days as Nimai. So Nimai, Nitai. Sometimes devotees do kirtan and you hear them singing Jaya Nimai, Jaya Nitai. So they're venerating the Supreme Lords known as Chaitanya and Nityananda. So Nityananda Prabhu, from a very young age, as a young boy, was very endearing to the community where he lived. And he would, from time to time, he would do these pastimes of Krishna and Balaram. And he will do these pastimes of Ram and Lakshman. But he was specifically very fond of doing the Lakshman pastimes. And sometimes, and so many people know Ramayana, and they've read and heard, and they know many of the Leelas that the Lord performed when he was here. But some of the Leelas that Nityananda Prabhu was doing was so different than what people knew from hearing or reading Ramayana. And it made them wonder, is he making this up? Or is he actually relishing his pastimes? So we know that the Lord is actually relishing his pastimes. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Janma karma chame devyam evam yo iti tarpata tatya deyam punarna janma naiti mahamiti sarji. So he said, one who understands the transcendental, so not just an ordinary, transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, does not upon leaving this body return to this material world, but comes to my transcendental abode. So our jobs, all of us, is not just to hear these pastimes, but try to understand. Not just hear these messages, but try to understand it, put it into practice. Right? That is the most important thing. It's not just going in one ear and out the next. It should go in and it should register inside. Right? We should think about it. What is Lord Krishna actually saying? Right? We read Bhagavad Gita and we read, the first verse I quoted was Antakale chamamivam smaran mukvakala. So what is Krishna saying? Krishna is saying, remember me. But he is actually very specific. He says, remember me only. But how can we remember him at the time of death if we don't remember him throughout our lives? You know, there's a saying, practice makes perfect. If you practice something, like we have many children in our congregation, and they're in school, and they learn a subject matter, whatever that subject matter is, math, whatever, and then there's a test. The teacher tests us to see how well we've mastered the topic. And once we've passed that, we get a good grade, it means we've mastered that topic, then they move on to a little bit higher topic, and so on and so forth. So spiritual life is like that. Spiritual education is like that. So when we hear it, we should try to understand, what is Lord Krishna actually saying? We should ask ourselves that question. What is Krishna saying? And how does this relate to me? Right? So Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. You know, we've heard of Nara Narayan Rishi. Narayan is Krishna, Nara is Arjuna. Arjuna already knows the entire Bhagavad Gita. He knew. He didn't need Krishna to tell him. But whenever Krishna comes, Krishna performs a leela. Leela is like a drama, you know, a little play. You know, sometimes they have I think there's one called Cats that they do on Broadway, and they do it in one city for a number of months, and then when they're tired of doing it or people stop paying, then they go somewhere else and they do it again. So Krishna's leela is like that. Krishna comes and he does a leela, all his entourage comes with him. Everyone comes and they perform that leela with Krishna. And when Krishna is done there, he goes somewhere else. So right now, Lord Krishna is somewhere in some universe performing his leela. We don't know which universe, but he knows. But he's somewhere doing this leela. But he's doing this for our pleasure. Right? He says, one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance. Right? We need to understand. Right? Krishna is telling us, you need to understand. So we don't just read it and pass it over, okay, next page, and read just for the sake of reading. But we won't achieve anything. If we just read Bhagavad Gita just for the sake of reading, or any scripture just for the sake of reading, we will never understand. There's one category of transcendentalists who does that. Krishna talks about him in the Bhagavad Gita, him or her. And they're known as Gyanis. So Gyanis, they're constantly reading, they're trying to get more and more knowledge. But they never put it into practice. And because they never put it into practice, when they die, they might go to the spiritual world. But unfortunately, they will never get a spiritual body. The soul will just hang in the Brahma Jyoti. You know, nowadays they say, let's hang out. So So the soul just hang out in the Brahmajyoti, right? And then eventually, because we have desires, Haribol, we have desires, and in this material world, our desires tend to be material. And we always want to enjoy, right? There's only one enjoyer. His name is Krishna. The word Krishna means supreme enjoyer. He is simply enjoying. And his expansions are doing everything. Lord Balaram, or Lord Nityananda, who is his expansion, they're doing everything. And Krishna is just playing his flute, and he is enjoying. Right? So, but there's only one Krishna. So if someone has this thinking that I will meditate and I will become God, then we're sorely mistaken. No one can ever become God. We can become godly, or we can become God-like, but we can never become God. That job is already taken. Right? So, but if we surrender to the Lord, so I mentioned the three types of transcendentalists: Gyanis, Yogis, and Bhaktas. So we are trying to become Bhaktas. We're trying to become servants of the Lord. So in the Iskcon society, you might meet devotees and you ask them, "What is your name?" And they'll say, "My name is so-and-so Das," or "My name is so-and-so Dasi." So it means that we are trying to become servants. There's a verse, Gopi Pada Kamalayur Dasa Dasa Anudas. So we want to be the servant of Anudas. We want to be the smallest servant of the master of the gopis. And who is the master of the gopis? Lord Krishna. So Nityananda Prabhu performed all these pastimes, and he mesmerized all of the... I thought Prabhupada's phone was ringing. The phone number is 108. So Nityananda Prabhu performed all these pastimes, and he became very endearing to the not just to the residents of Ekachakra, but also to his parents, and specifically his father. So one day, when Nityananda Prabhu was about 12 years old, 12 or 13, a sadhu came, and sadhu visited their home. And the sadhu became so impressed with Nityananda Prabhu's seva to him, his service to him, he asked Harai Pandit, "Can I take Nityananda Prabhu with me?" This is a traveling sadhu. He's traveling all over, going from one tirtha to the next. "Can I take Nityananda Prabhu with me?" And his father, so in Vedic times, sadhus come, and sadhus sometimes they will ask for your son. And so his father could not say no. And he allowed Nityananda Prabhu to go with the sadhu. And his father became so heartbroken that he's been separated from his son. And just like Maharaj Dasrath, Haribol, just like Maharaj Dasrath, he pined away and left his body. So Nityananda Prabhu traveled with the sadhu for many, many years. I think something like 20 years, right? They traveled all over the Indian subcontinent, going to all different places. And Nityananda Prabhu took initiation from the sadhu. Does anyone know what Nityananda Prabhu's guru's name is? It starts with an L. Who is the goddess of fortune? Okay, who's her husband? Lakshmi Pati. His name was Lakshmi Pati. So he has a name after Lord Krishna, or after Lord Vishnu. So his guru, the sadhu that he traveled with was Lakshmipati, and he accepted the sadhu as his guru, uh, known as Lakshmipati. So Lakshmipati also had many other disciples. One of his most prominent disciples was Madhavinda Puri. So you might have all heard the story of Madhavinda Puri. If you don't know that story, that's homework for you. Hint, it's connected with Iskcon Toronto. Our Iskcon Toronto is named after Iskcon Toronto was Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada called Toronto New Remuna Dham. So look up that pastime. Other disciples was Ishwara Puri, or Ishwara Puri was a disciple of Madhavinda Puri. And so Ishwara Puri accepted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as his disciple. So Nityananda Prabhu traveled and he ended up in Navadvip. And when he came to Navadvip, he hid out in somebody's house. Does anybody know the name of the person's house where he hid? Nandanacharya, right? He hid in his house. But Mahaprabhu knew that Nityananda Prabhu was there. And so Lord Krishna and Balaram is never apart. Neither is Ram and Lakshman, they're never apart. They're always together. So now it's time for them to come together. So Nityananda Prabhu, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu sent the Namacharya. Anybody who knows who the Namacharya is? Who? Haridas Thakur. And who else did he send? He's in the Panchatattva picture there. No?
So whom? Sorry, I did not hear the question, sir.
I'll ask anybody else who heard the question. Who else went with Haridas Thakur to look for Nityananda Prabhu? Srivas Pandit. So the two of them went and they looked, and they're looking everywhere. But Nityananda Prabhu is such a good player of hide and seek that he hit so well that they couldn't find him. So then Mahaprabhu went himself, and Mahaprabhu found him. And when he found him, they embraced. And on that spot where they met, if you ever get the opportunity to go to Navadvip, there is a temple there that's built on that spot where they met. What is the name of the temple? Yeah, I forgot as well. Something like that, yeah. So Mahaprabhu met him there, and they came together. So Navadvip was Nityananda Prabhu was known as an avadut. Anyone know what avadut means? Huh? Yeah, someone who doesn't really care about norms of society, He didn't really care for that so much. Because he was always meditating on the Lord with him, right? So at that point, and Nityananda Prabhu was a very tall figure. Actually, I don't know if you all know, if you get a chance to visit Mayapur, and you visit Iskcon Mayapur, there's beautiful forms of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, Srivas Pandit, and who else? Gadadhar Pandit. And they're all standing on the altar, 9 foot tall. So it's explained that when Mahaprabhu and his associates descended, they were all, when they put their hands up, 9 feet tall, from the top of their finger to the bottom of their feet, 9 feet tall, just imagine. Right? 9 feet, the tallest people. And they would go out on Harinam. So Mahaprabhu instituted this Sankirtan movement. And they will go on Nagar Kirtan. They will go from village to village, and they will chant the names of Lord Hari. They chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, and they would dance in ecstasy and attract the hearts and minds and captivate the imagination of everyone that came in contact with them. So this is what we need to do. We need to, when we chant the name of the Lord, we should try to chant it without offenses. Every day we read, there are 10 offenses, right? But do we actually, we hear someone stands at the microphone and read out those 10 offenses. But do we ever try to think, what does it actually mean? Do we meditate on each one of them? If we don't, we should. And then at the end, after reciting all those 10, whoever is saying, they'll say, and anyone who would like to be a Vaishnava should carefully guard against these 10 offenses. Why? Because if we want Krishna prema, we want love for Krishna, then we should be very careful when we are chanting his names that we're doing it without offense, that we're not offending the Supreme Lord. Right? So I will not go through those 10 offenses, but I would ask that everyone, nowadays everyone has a little computer here that they carry around, right? Everything is here. If you type in Mr. Google, 10 offenses against the holy name, you will find them. And when you find them, my humble request is to please read them. Please think about them. Think about them very carefully. And then think about how we can implement this in our lives, right? Then our chanting will become successful, right? So as I mentioned earlier, the Yuga Dharma for Kali Yuga, the Lord is so kind that he doesn't let us sit for 10,000 years in a forest and meditate. So we've all heard the story of Vishwamitra Muni. Vishwamitra Muni was sitting and meditating for 10,000 years. 10,000 years, just imagine. Just in case you're wondering, everyone in Satyuga lived for 100,000 years. So he sat and he meditated for 10,000 years. And he had generated after 10,000 years so much spiritual Shakti. But unfortunately, he heard the tinkling of some bangles and it all went for naught. So this is how difficult it is. That's Satyuga, that was meditation. Lord made it so easy that in Kali Yuga, all we need to do is chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when we chant the holy name, we should chant it loud enough so that we can hear. So one of the smallest devotees of the Lord, Prahlad Maharaj, he's taught his students, his classmates, but also all of us, that there are 9 processes of bhakti, 9 processes of devotion. And the very first and most important is Shravanam, which means to hear. Right? So and then the next one is Kirtanam. So Kirtanam we can be chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on our Japamala, or we could be doing congregational chanting here in this room, or in our home, or wherever. But the key thing is, when we're doing this, is that we should chant loud enough for us to hear, and we should actually hear it. We should make the effort to hear it. And if we make the effort to hear it, and we do it without offense, So we talked about the 10 offenses. We do it without offense, then we will get 108% benefit. Not just 100, 108. Or if you like, 1,008%. I mentioned the 108 because it's a very auspicious number. So some smart person will say, well, nothing can be more than 100%. But for Krishna, one time, one devotee went to visit Lord Krishna, and he came back, and everybody asked, oh, what was Krishna doing? He said he was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. I said, how is that possible? How can one thread an elephant through the eye of a needle? This is impossible. But for Lord Krishna, anything is possible. Right? Anything is possible. Recently, a few days ago on Wednesday? Monday? When was Ekadashi? Monday or Tuesday? Tuesday. Tuesday was Ekadashi, and we fasted half day on Tuesday because there was an appearance day on Wednesday. Whose appearance was that? Lord Varahadev. So Lord Varahadev took the form of a boar, and he dove down to the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean, which is at the bottom of this universe, because some big demon thought he was smart, and he would knock the earth out of its orbit and throw it down in the bottom of the ocean. And so the Lord is always looking to make his devotees happy. Paritranaya sadhunam. Right? He's always here to protect his devotees. So he took the form of a boar, he dove into the ocean, and he picked up, his boar has 2 tusks. So he picked up the earth on the tusk and brought it and put it back in its spot. Right? If you take a boar and throw it in an ocean, it'll die. But the Lord can do anything. He can take the form of a boar and he could enter the ocean all the way down to the bottom. This universe is half filled with water. Anybody know what that water is? Where did that water come from? So the water is the perspiration of Mahavishnu. And the universe is floating on the causal ocean. In the spiritual world, there's an ocean where Mahavishnu is lying and he's breathing. And as he exhales, universes are created. And when he inhales, the universes go back inside. When he exhales, the universes come out. And there's a second expansion of Mahavishnu, of Lord Vishnu, known as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And he enters into every bubble, which becomes a universe, which is floating on this causal ocean in the bottom of the spiritual world, or in the side of the spiritual world, or somewhere in the spiritual world. It's there. And then there's a third Vishnu known as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. And Kshirodakashayi Vishnu can be found in every atom. So if you look at this kartal, it must be made up of zillions of atoms. And in the nucleus of every atom, I remember that word from school, hundreds of years ago. Inside each atom, in the middle of the atom is a nucleus. And in that nucleus, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu is there. But because he is unlimited, he's known as Antaryami, right? He's unlimited. Not only is he inside the atom, he's also outside the atom. Just see. He can be inside and outside at the same time. So, Nityananda's pastime is very long and very detailed. But I just wanted to give a small, tiny synopsis. And I was only able to come to this point where he and Mahaprabhu met. And I think My time has come to an end.
No, Prabhu.
No, my time hasn't come.
Your time has come to an end for the class. Your time has not come to an end. We'll continue this.
Okay, no, I'm not gonna die now, but my class, well, maybe I could die, I don't know. But my time for the class, my time for the class has come to an end because we have a schedule, and I think there's an exciting event that's gonna happen after this class. But like I mentioned earlier, I just want to leave you with one point, that anything we hear, anything we read, we should think about. We should question it. Because sometimes we hear the wrong thing. So nothing wrong with questioning, but not in a challenging way. Right? Srimad Bhagavatam teaches us that spiritual subject matters we should not question in a challenging way. But we should question. Why? Because we want to get a proper understanding. And when we get that proper understanding, then we can put that into practice. And that is the aim. The aim is to put it into practice. Otherwise, why are we all sitting here? Right? If we're not want to put any of this in practice, then we're actually wasting our time sitting here. We could be doing something else. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. If you have any questions, generally we leave time for questions. But if you have any, I'll be around, and other devotees are around. You can ask, and we'll gladly answer them. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Shri Nityananda Prabhu ki jai. Shri Nityananda Ram ki jai. Iskcon Milton Yatra ki jai. Nitai Gaur.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. It was such an amazing class, and we wish to hear again and again from you. So your time can never be over. Now is the time for Shikshashtakam, and I would like to